Today, we're looking at Robert Oster's Royal Red. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Robert Oster's Royal Red is a red ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples, I put the ink into a different pen for a day, I then put it into a cross Bailey with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down, immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is it's a lighter version of the red pushing up, and it's gathering and getting darker. But most interesting is the yellow that we're seeing across the top. It's neat that this is a red and yellow that still comes across as a red. Normally we're going to get much more of a blended tone there. We really don't see it in the writing. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. Now where the ink is pushing up, it is darker. The line across the bottom is slightly darker, and the ink doesn't travel as far. But basically, it looks like the original chromatography, which makes me feel like there's no real hold on for this ink. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. Now, I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it's handling very nicely. No blowout, a little bit of spread from the extra fine to about a fine medium, but otherwise good and makes me feel safe using it as a note taker. Water is reactivating, lifting all of the darkest tone. There is some pink there, some very light red, but that was only 30 seconds on the paper. We see the dots of the Rhodia dot pad coming through. Pen flush did everything that water did and a bit more. We start to see some of the white of the paper coming through, making me say that pen flush is all that you would need. And 1/3 bleach solution, as is normal, is completely removing it from the paper, but you shouldn't need that to clean this ink out. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Robert Oster's Royal Red has a viscosity of 2.43, making it normal and very close to average. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Robert Oster's Royal Red has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making it just a little bit faster than normal. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shading here. The extra fine is the exact same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shading. 8 seconds to dry. The medium is the exact same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it, and the smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. Now we get no bleeding. I mean, there's a little spot that's going on with the scrubby. That's where I'm putting it on stupid thick like an animal, and that's my fault, not the fault of the paper or the ink. Other than that, we have no bleeding. We do have some ghosting. It is still Tomoe River. The neat thing here is the tone. While it tones down, it also becomes kind of a dusty red. It's just kind of neat. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shading. The extra fine is the exact same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 19 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Now look at, see that? Back to what we saw with the Clairefontaine, because we have a tone of the ink change again for Rhodia. Rhodia has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Super fast. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine shows like we could get some color variation, but I don't see any up here. The medium shows us none, and we got none. The smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. This shows what a boring ink is, as in it's a very predictable performance. I'm getting the same tone of red with the exception of the Tomoe River. So we get the same tone of red all the way through. It's nice to know exactly what you're going to get before you even start. So I call it boring because it's predictable, but that doesn't mean it's bad. TWSBI paper, no bleeding, some minor ghosting. It is a slightly thinner paper. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading whatsoever. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine again shows us that we could get some color variation, but I'm not seeing any. The medium shows us we would get none, and I got none. The smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Moleskin. Yeah, not good. The good news is it did not touch the page underneath. You could not use the back of this page, I don't think. I don't believe, most anybody could, not even with the extra fine. But you're not touching the page underneath. So if you're okay with your pocket notebook, just turn the page and write on the fronts only. This is not a horrible ink for that if you love Moleskin notebooks. The medium has no spread, but it's got feathering all over it. Tons of feathering. It's gross feathering, but I want to say while it's gross feathering, it doesn't mean you couldn't use this. We're talking about a pocket-sized notebook, walking around, if that's the ink in your pen, it would work. It has no halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the medium. The extra fine has no spread, but it has feathering all over it again. So again, with all of that tiny little feathering, it doesn't make it unusable to jot your notes down while you're walking around for something. So not a problem on a pocket-sized notebook, just because you can read it. It's distracting feathering, but this isn't where you're, recording your major notes of life. 2 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation. We didn't get any. And a smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. And that is all that I have for the writing sample. Instead of finding inks that look like Robert Oster's Royal Red, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And being thematic, I decided on Diamine's Royal Blue. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Robert Oster's Royal Red? I think this is a great basic red. It works very nice. It looks very nice on the paper. Whenever you would want to use your red inks, it's not obnoxious to look at. It's not screaming. It's just red. No other real standout properties about it, but reds tend to have a very difficult time getting that. Thanks for watching.